Welcome to another episode of the Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making show, aka the M4 show. King, where can they tap in with us?
Y'all can tap in with us at www.them4show.com. Also tap in with us on Instagram at the M4 show. If you got topics that you want to see, hit us in the DMs. We appreciate you.
Now let's get into the episode.
What is going on, millionaires? We got a impactful and amazing episode for really two sets of people. For people that are trying to become financial planners, and also for married millionaires who are trying to get to their million and maybe even beyond. We have a visionary. We have the founder of Bamboo Financial Partners, Jasmine Ball, who's trying to not just make financial planning easier for y'all, but also make it real and accomplished. So if you can please help me welcome Jasmine Ball to the stage from Bamboo Financial Partners. How you doing this morning?
I am well. How are you?
I can't complain. It is a little hot. I'm in Riverside. It's already 80 something
Oof.
degrees before 10 a.m. So I will be honest there. But other than that, I'm fabulous.
Okay, we have great weather today in Tulsa. It's like 70s and sunny, nice breeze, not too humid. So we have
Mm,
to enjoy these days.
exactly. Soak it in. Soak it in. And speaking of enjoying these days, I believe you have a amazing celebration coming up, and you took the time to still connect with us. We greatly appreciate that. How many more days into this big celebration?
8 days until the wedding. So it's next Sunday.
Wow. Let's go. I love it. Congratulations. We love love on the M4 show. All right. We love love. But I
Yeah.
want to kind of jump right into it. Um, the two people that I really want this episode to speak to is the maybe young teenager, maybe someone who's currently in college and they've heard of financial planning, but they're not necessarily sure how to become a financial planner. I would love for you to be able to tell them a little bit about your background, your story, and how you became who you are today. And then also for the married couples out there, whether they're recently married, whether they're 8 days away from being married, or they've been married for 80 years, really want to talk through some basic financial planning and financial conversations. Does that sound okay with you, Jasmine?
Absolutely. I love it.
Love it. So let's start off because I think I knew this, but I recently confirmed it, aka right before we came on the show, that you're actually from California.
I
All right.
am.
Love the
Yay.
West Coast love in here. Can you talk a little bit about how'd you discover financial planning and also just the city that you're from and kind of your upbringing on what led you to financial planning?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in California, born in San Jose. But quickly after I was born, we moved up to Northern California, Chico area, and then grew up in Orland. So most people, if you know of California, are like, and even Californians, like, I have no idea where that is. And it's pretty close to the Oregon border. I'd say we're about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Oregon. And it's not the pretty part of Northern California either, where people are like, oh, Northern California is so pretty. It is. No, we were in the valley, like all just like the
Mm,
hot, like it would get up to 115 degrees. There's barely any trees. It's farmland. So that's where all the dairies and the almond orchards are and the olives. Actually, Corning, which was right next to us, produces the most like all or olives for like the world. So it's right there. So in the heart of agriculture. My dad was a butcher for the town that we were in. 7,000 people in our town. I think we had three stoplights when I lived there. Graduating class in high school for me was five students. So when I say like little, yeah, five.
mm.
Two of them are coming to the wedding, so we're gonna have three out of five of us at the wedding. We have the majority.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, but that was all I knew too. So, people in my town, very religious town too. So if people did go away to college, it was to Christian schools, and I grew up in Christian schools. But I just kind of knew, one, that I wanted to go away to college, even though I didn't know what that looked like. No one in my family had ever been to college, and much less left the state. So I just applied to different places, and my parents basically said, okay, whoever gives you the most money for college, that's where you're going, or you're going to stay home. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to St. Paul, Minnesota, because that's where I got into school. I
Mhm.
actually cried because I didn't know where it was. Like, I don't know where Minnesota is. Very typical Californian, you're just
Right.
like California, New York, and Florida. That's kind of all I knew. But I ended up in Minnesota, and it was really the best thing for me to just experience life outside of the city that I grew in, met people from countries that I had never heard of, with just perspectives that I didn't even know existed.
Mm,
And but I mean, when I went there again, I small town, didn't know anyone that went to college, so I had not a clue what I was doing. Honestly, didn't use a lot of the resources available to me too, because there was like college and career centers, but it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. You don't even know what questions to ask. I just knew of college from what I'd seen in the movies, you know? So I was like, I'm doing
right.
it, moving to my dorm room.
Love it. So at that point, did you have any, I guess, inkling of what you wanted to do for your career? You just knew you wanted to get out of that town, you wanted to experience something new.
Kind of a combination. It's interesting because all of my college application essays said I was going to major in history and then go to law school.
Mm.
And I didn't take one history class my entire college career, and I clearly didn't go to law school. I became a financial planner, but I am marrying a lawyer, so maybe that counts. I was just like
There
putting
you
it into
go.
the future.
Mhm. Manifested that.
There we go.
Well,
Um,
so
oh, go ahead.
yes, I wanted to. I think you were about to say it, but how did you stumble upon financial planning? Was it at St. Paul and going to some of those career fair, or was it the algorithm and the internet that helped you find it? How did you stumble upon financial planning?
So I truly did stumble upon financial planning. I'd never heard of the profession before. I had never heard of, investments, stock market. My family, we were working class, so money was a struggle. So it was never something that I ever even knew people that had money. Um, so when I went to college, I was studying education and psychology. And part of that is in the education department, they would always advertise different babysitting jobs. They're like, oh, you want to be a teacher, obviously, you like kids, here are some babysitting jobs. And I had to work my pay to get through college. So I worked like 4 or 5 different jobs usually. And
Mm,
one of the jobs was a babysitting job.
amen.
Yeah. I was like barely at school. I was working more than I was at school, which honestly, looking back, I wish I would have, delved more into school because you don't have that much time in that type of setting. But the babysitting job I had, the mom was a financial planner. And yeah, that is so her name was Sarah Houle Johns. She will actually be at the wedding too. So I owe the entry into my career to her fully. And even that was I was just supposed to be watching her son George, and he and I were buddies. And one summer she needed these honestly like weird babysitting hours. And I was like, I don't know how I find a job that complements these hours. And she goes, well, how about you come work for me at my office? Now she's a boss. Like
Wow.
she already had one assistant. She's like, I could use another assistant. I said, I I don't know what you do, but I'm willing to learn. So that's how I initially got into the industry.
Wow. So you were working as a babysitter. You
Hmm.
didn't know what your client did, but they just offered you a job based on how well you were babysitting, based on the trust that they had. And then from there on, you were able to get exposed to financial planning. What were the things that you saw maybe those first couple days of work in the office with the financial planner that made you think like, hey, I can do this. I like this.
Yeah, because also, and then on top of that, it was just supposed to be a summer job. And then I, during that summer, saw it and I was like, I actually like this. And so,
Mm,
one of the things I had never been in any sort of corporate environment before. So, to be around, and women in the financial planning industry or the finance industry are rare. So, it was just my boss, her assistant, and me were the only women in the entire office. The rest were men. So, to be around just in this corporate environment, they were also friendly, so kind. I was definitely the youngest there because I was 20 years old. And I basically saw, and I'm not a numbers person, interestingly enough, and math was never like my go to subject, but I loved relationships and connecting with people. And that's what I saw her doing. Being her assistant, I'd be opening her mail or reading her emails, and I'm seeing the stories that our clients would tell her, like, hey, this and this happened in my life. Hey, we're expecting a baby. Hey, I'm getting married. Here's an invite to my, wedding, or someone in my family passed away. And I just really saw that connection piece and was like, this is what I like, where you get to know people. And that's when it kind of sparked my interest. And I asked her after the summer, towards the end of summer, I said, hey, can I stay on? And she goes, yeah, you can stay on, but you have to get your licenses, because there's some things that, in order to be more effective in the industry, you should have your licenses. So I said, okay, sure. And again, not fully knowing what I was doing, I'm just thinking, hey, this is a cool job. And that's where I really started piquing my interest and seeing how it is what she did. It was really formative to me wanting to get into the industry.
I love it. And this also shows one, the power of your network, right? You never
Hmm.
know who you're around. You never know who you're working with. You never who know who's around. So you want to make sure you're always putting your best foot forward. And then also the power of always giving 120% no matter what the task is. Right. I love it.
Yeah. I love
What?
that she saw that in me, because she said,
Mhm.
I remember her asking me to come into the office, and I said, I don't even know what finances are. I don't know what you do. And she said, I've seen the way that you've handled, taking care of the schedule at the house and the quality of work that you do. Like, you're smart. You can do this. And I was like, okay.
Love it. So what advice would you have for a 20-year-old out there watching this video, and they're thinking they might want to get into financial planning? What are some of those I guess basic steps or fundamental steps that they can start taking to either prepare themselves for that career or to figure out if that career is truthfully for them?
I mean, basically, so I used to run an internship program too when I was in LA, one of the managers of the office there. And I think that it's so important to just get exposure to the industry, to figure out what it is that that you like about the industry. And every office is ran a little bit differently. So whether that internship or exposure looks like what I did, which was being an assistant, or it looks like being an intern or coming under a mentor, there are so many resources out there too to just understand like what it is a financial planner does. And so finding someone that you like and respect, and maybe finding how they run their business too, because I will say candidly, if I would have been under maybe some other financial planners that I ran into over the years, I maybe wouldn't have been as intrigued to the industry because of the way that they run their practice. Not wrong, but just different. They might be more numbers focused as opposed to more relationship focused. And the numbers isn't what appealed to me, it was the relationship. So, I mean, I really, that was God's favor of my life that I got placed with Sarah, right? And got to see how she ran her business, and that appealed to me. But and then there's some people that are numbers focused. I've just exposure, because I've had some kids over the years that have come into internship and they're like, 1000%, I want to be a financial planner. They do it for a few months and they're like, no, this is not for me. And that's okay. I mean, every opportunity is, you're learning whether it's a good fit or a bad fit, but you don't really know until you actually do it.
All right. I love it. And I guess kind of going back and putting the spotlight on your story, and highlighting the amazing work that Sarah did in the exposure. You were so intrigued with financial planning that you decided to become the first Black female certified financial planner in Oklahoma and start your own financial planning firm. So talk to us
Yes.
about that transition of just soaking up the knowledge and the wisdom from that first position, and then I guess just transforming that into your own vision.
Yeah. So I started when I was 20 as an assistant. After I graduated college, I loved what I did in the company I was with, the company that Sarah was with, but I did miss California and I wanted to be closer to my family. So I moved back to California, to LA actually. And I was in LA for about 6 years. Started building my book of business there, literally cold calling teachers after schools. Because again, I still love that education piece. I think educators are so important. So I wanted to continue working with them. So, I would call them and say, hey, you have a pension, you have retirement. When's the last time you had a chance to review? So that's how I started building my book of business.
Oh, hold on.
And
Let's
yeah.
slow down here because you're going right into a master class. One, can you break down what is a book of business, and
Yeah.
then you decided to really zoom in on the niche of teachers, and there's
Hmm.
tons of other clients that you could have reached out to. Can you just kind of explain why teachers? So book of business and then why teachers?
So, book of business is essentially like people that you're working with. So, I work with individuals, families, businesses. So, when I first came to LA, I literally didn't know anyone in the city of LA, in the county of LA before I moved there. So, I also didn't have what we call a natural market, which is like people that you already know saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And this is also pre social media, because this would have been 2014. So, it really wasn't that big. And then our industry as a whole is fairly regulated, so you can't just put anything out there on social media, especially not back in 2014. So I was there, and so I was like, all right, if I want to build clients in a book of business, the way that it started in my industry, now it's shifted a little bit depending on where you're getting a position, but it is commission only. So the only way I got paid was if I convinced someone, hey, I can bring value to you as a financial planner. Do you want to work with me? So it was rough those first few years. And you're calling people over the phone. So they're not seeing you and your whole personality, they're just hearing you over the phone. And then I decided specifically to work with teachers because one, I believe so strongly in that sector that they're underserved and underpaid. So I wanted to still loving helping people in that background. I wanted to help be a difference there. And then two, it just was very easy to become a master of the benefits that they already have. So teachers in California and many states, they have a pension. So I learned the pension inside and out, like the back of my
Mm,
hand. So where I could already, and they don't have a choice whether or not to contribute to the pension. So my thought was, I can be a master of something that they already have. So I'm bringing instant value because they already have it. So I'm letting them know what they have. And then I'm helping them understand, are there any sort of missing pieces to the puzzle and how I can help you fill them in. So that was kind of a easy way, but also because it was niche, it was focused, it was easy to become like a master. And I was their go-to person when it came to retirement or the pension. They're like, oh, just call Jazz.
yeah, brilliant right now. I love it. And what are the services like? What are you offering to the teachers?
Yeah, so I still work with teachers. They're a big part of my business, but I do work with, anybody. Um, but in terms of teachers specifically, we were working with, they have 403B plans, which are simply like 401k plans, but for the nonprofit sector. So basically, even though they have pensions, typically any sort of times you have fixed income, like a pension or Social Security, it's not going to replace all of your income in retirement. And even if it does day one, because of inflation, it's going to erode that purchasing power. And by year 5, 10, 20, it's not enough. So you'll have a gap in between of, okay, this is what I'm bringing in versus this is what I need. And that gap widens over time. So what you do is what we call supplemental savings, looking at 403Bs, IRAs, not pensions, Roth IRAs, any sort of investments, is saying when my fixed income isn't enough, what do I use to bridge that gap? So that's essentially what I would do with teachers, kind of project out and see what that might look like for them and how much they needed to save towards that gap.
Amazing. So you did that in LA. Shout out to the Lakers, although we just took a L.
I'm a Clippers
Oh,
fan,
you're a
so
Clippers fan. Clippers also took a L. This LA
they
was
did,
hurting.
they did.
Oh, it was a rough year. We're California, so I'm still rooting for the Warriors. Hopefully they can pull it off for the
Oh, you
state.
remember? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm like pseudo OKC fan now because I feel like I kind of have to be.
respect it.
But they also lost last night. But I am rooting for OKC over Denver because Denver knocked my Clippers out. So
Exactly. Yes. No Nuggets over here.
no,
But
no.
you were in LA 6 years, kind of building your book of business, right? Learning how to do it yourself, cold calling, emails, is becoming a master of your niche, which I really love that nugget for everyone listening is niching down and really master that lane. What inspired the move to Tulsa? Right. So you're living good, you're in California, you're building it, but and
Yeah.
then something pulls you to Oklahoma. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah. I mean, I would have never ever thought I'd end up in Oklahoma. Much less because honestly, again, I feel like this is a common theme. Geography is not my strong point, but I did not know where Oklahoma was on a map. Like I was like, I never once even thought of Oklahoma. I mean,
Mm,
even when you think of like the Thunder, for example, because I'm a sports fan, like you still don't like associate it with Oklahoma. Like honestly, even like Chicago, I forget is Illinois, right? You just think Chicago. So
right.
the same thing with like Oklahoma, but really it was the algorithm got me. There was this sermon series that I used to listen to back in like 2017. That church was based here in Tulsa. And then I was like, oh, it'd be cool to go to a conference there. And then the algorithm took over when I said Tulsa to where it pointed me towards Tulsa Remote. So Tulsa Remote is this program here in Tulsa by the George Kaiser Foundation that actually pays remote workers $10,000 to move to the city of Tulsa. And it's pretty like uh, very flexible guidelines. They're like, listen, you just have to live here for a year in the city of Tulsa. And so I was like, I can do anything for a year. So this was
Right.
also 2020. So this was December 2020 is when I officially moved to Tulsa. So if you're in LA in 2020, it was not fun. Like you're like,
No.
I got to get out of here. So that definitely prompted. So that's how I ended up in Tulsa. And I didn't necessarily think it would be forever. I was open to it being forever, but I was like, let me just see. Being a financial planner, what piqued my interest was I could go from renting, we were in a 4-bedroom condo with some friends, and my rent for the master bedroom is what my mortgage is here for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in Tulsa. So that was like a no-brainer.
Right. Quality of life exponentially increased.
Yeah, exactly. And to be a homeowner, I
Mm,
didn't think anytime soon I'm 33 now and I moved here I was 29. I didn't Buying a home in LA was not even on my radar. It was like absolutely not. I can't afford that. And even if I could afford it, I wouldn't be able to afford anything else. So to be able to move out here, become a homeowner before the age of 30, I bought a second property 2 years ago. So yeah, it's been really fun.
love it. And during this journey, at what point does the legacy of Black Wall Street influence the move, or just, I guess, motivate your actions later on? I don't know if you already knew about Black Wall Street before the algorithm took over and took you to Tulsa, or if you just kind of did some additional research after that.
I definitely did not know about Black Wall Street like many of us growing up, even Tulsans. There's so many Tulsans. That's a whole nother topic of stories that are not being told and shared. But of course, May 2020 was when George Floyd happened. So that really is, I think, the catalyst behind, if I'm looking back, the catalyst behind me wanting to start my own business. So my dad was a self-employed butcher. So I have seen entrepreneurship. Of course, it looked differently because he was a butcher, but I saw him set his own hours, design what his shop looked like, pick the name for his shop. So that's always been in me and something that I've liked to do. I never thought I would fully work for myself. That was just I was comfortable honestly with where I was before. But that catalyst of George Floyd and just seeing where there was a mismatch of values and there was a value conversation when it was convenient and politically advantageous, and then it would go away. And I just decided that I want the values that I believe in to be ingrained in every decision that I make in my business. And I don't just want it to be part of the time, I want it to be all the time. So I
Mm,
said, well, the only way to have complete control over that is I just got to do it myself. So learning about Black Wall Street, seeing that entrepreneurship, I was like, how cool to be a financial planner already in the industry, but I get to come here where there is just the spirit of entrepreneurship and the spirit of Greenwood too. So to bring that here, that was just the cherry on top, and it just kind of confirmed like, yes, this is the place to go. This is the move to make. And at the time, I did not know that there were not other Black female CFPs in the state. Um,
mm,
I didn't have my CFP at the time. I got it when I was here. But yeah, I didn't know that there was, again, from California, you're kind of in this incubator where you forget that there's so much more diversity there, that you forget that there's other parts of the country that are severely lacking in that. So I was just like, oh yeah, I'll go there, and then I get here and become the first.
love it. Sometimes you got to become a, what was it, a little fish in a little pond rather than a little fish in a big pond. Right.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
But another quick plug, I'm not sure if you know, but for our listeners, we do have Play Black Wall Street, where we teach about the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street in a board game. Again, because a lot of people don't know about the history, don't know about Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Parlor, Uncle Steve's Barbecue, William Dreamland Theater, Carter's Barber Shop, Booker T. Washington High
Yeah.
School, right? All the amazing businesses and entrepreneurs that were there. And when you visit Black Wall Street, and I encourage everyone to definitely go visit Greenwood, visit Jasmine, go to the office, tap in with them, and you can still feel the essence of the excellence that is there and that was there. So definitely make sure, again, check out Play Black Wall Street so you can get the board game, and definitely check out Bamboo Financial Partners. Um, I want to talk about, well, actually, before we transition and talk to the married couples, can you give one last piece of advice for, again, folks that want to pursue this career, want to pursue financial planning, whether it's because they're a genius at numbers or because they just love people and they want to impact people's lives like you? What would be your last piece of advice for those folks?
I would say in general, um, if you don't see a space that looks like what you want it to be or a role, create it. That's what
Mm,
I did. I was like, I don't see, and still to this day, I get pushback from people in the industry because the way I choose to run my business, to be inclusive, to be accessible, to have pricing that doesn't make sense, right? I was like, I don't care. This is the space I want to be in. This is the lane I want to be in. This is the purpose I want to be in. So if you don't see a space, create it. Because this is one of those industries, finance in particular, where it is free reign in terms of who can be your client, literally anybody. So you just have to decide who you want to be your client and market to them, create your business around that, create your business plan around that. And there's no set way to do it. I don't care how it's always been done. That's my least favorite thing in the world. Like this is the way I've always done it. Okay, great. But how do we do it going forward? So create the space. And if you need ideas, I'm on LinkedIn and I get people all the time, younger people saying, "Hey, do you have time? Can you talk to me for 30 minutes? Just how you got in the industry or what your thoughts are?" And I am happy to give them, or find a different financial planner that resonates with you more and reach out to them too. But create the space because there is room. We need it. We need young people. We need people that look different. We need women. We need more people in finances for sure. There's not an overabundance.
no, love it. Create the space, y'all. Speaking of creating the space, right? Talking about marriages, creating your home, creating your union. Finances can sometimes be a point of tension in
Hmm.
relationships. What advice, as a professional financial planner, what advice do you have for married couples like us when we're trying to make financial decisions and either we disagree? Like, how do we come together and have a unified front on our finances?
Yeah, I will say, one of the things I didn't mention is I ended up, while I was in LA, still working in finance, always planning to be in finance, but I ended up getting my master's in social work at USC. So, go Trojans. One of the things that we did is I was doing therapy with individuals. And at first I was like, this is such a far cry from finances, until you start working with married people or really anybody in general. You're like, just understanding the mechanics behind our thoughts. And I tell people all the time, there's a numbers answer and then there's a values answer, and sometimes they don't always align. So especially with couples, I try to help them understand is you're coming from your side and you're coming from your side, and sometimes you're not seeing eye to eye, and you think that this is the right way because a lot of times that's how you were raised or that's what was successful and helpful for you. And on other sides, it's like, well, this is what successful and helpful for me. And it's not a matter of choosing a side, it's a matter of finding a path forward and saying, how do we make it both work? Because the goal ultimately is success for you both, right? It's like we want to save, we want to build wealth, we want to make sure that our goals are being met. So, what's the best way to do that? So, having a conversation and saying, you may feel comfortable using credit cards. Here's where I don't feel comfortable using credit cards, and here's why. So, kind of really digging down into deeper of the reason of why, which always helps us understand because sometimes it's a I don't feel comfortable because it's a lack of education or knowledge. So that's easy. Let's talk about it then. Or
Yeah.
sometimes it's, I don't feel comfortable because I've seen how this has not turned out well. How do we change that narrative? How do we change that story? Or how do we put in guardrails or boundaries in place where we don't get to that point where it becomes not helpful? So I think a lot of it is just conversation. I've seen couples,
Yeah.
they come in, my way's right, my way's right. And the answer is most of the time, neither is the right way. It's just how do we find the best way?
Right. And do you find yourself sometimes serving as a financial therapist when two the couples?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, all the time. Sometimes they'll be like, and they'll try to get me on their side too. They'll be like, Jasmine, well, don't you think that they did this and that? And I was like, listen, because, and that's also my role is I never, there are some times, let me be clear, that I do fully have to choose a side. I'm like, no, that's, no,
Mm,
they are in fact correct.
yeah.
That is not okay. But oftentimes I never want the other spouse or partner to feel excluded or feel like they don't have a voice or can't come to me too. Like I have to be for them, not one of them, right? I'm like, I'm for you as a couple. So coming to them and just helping them understand, like, well, I could see what you're saying there. Here's my thoughts. And honestly, having me, obviously this is a biased point of view, but having me or just a third party in there helps, right? Just
Right.
like, am I crazy? Does this make sense? And sometimes it's like, it does make sense, but here's how it needs to be tweaked a little bit. But hearing that from your spouse is not going to be helpful. But hearing it from a professional is like, oh, okay, all right.
Got you. So what are some of those coaching tips that sound really great from the professional that you can give couples that are listening right now? And I'm looking for maybe like this two or three general tips that are usually helpful for couples to build wealth together. And these can be mistakes that they're currently doing, like overuse of credit card or not even having a budget, all the way up to a secure investment strategy. But what are maybe two to three coaching tips that you would have for folks?
I would say, well, first off, the main thing that you always want to search for is balance. I
Mm,
would say oftentimes in couples, there is someone that is more comfortable with spending money than the other person. There's a person that's more comfortable with saving money. And oftentimes that's when we're getting friction because one person wants to spend it because they're like, hey, we only live once. Let's enjoy the life that we are
mhm.
having now. And the other person's like, but what about tomorrow? And I think that there's space for both of those things. That's you.
Yeah, I'm
So
I'm the tomorrow person. My wife is the vacation today person.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, let's create balance. So even if they get like a windfall, I'm like, okay, let's put some towards savings, some towards investment, some towards something fun today. And like when you create that balance, because if you're exclusionary to one thing, somebody's gonna feel left out, right? Or you're feeling like all we're doing is saving money for tomorrow and we're not having fun today. Or the other person is like, I don't feel comfortable in tomorrow because we're spending all the money today. So I'm all about balance. So I love that there are spaces like this and TikToks and Instagrams where you're hearing all this good advice. And my best thing is always put it through your own lens. So
Mm,
our credit cards, cool. Yes, they can be a helpful way to build, credit, to build points and to utilize those. However, if you do not have the discipline to not stay out of debt, it is a no for me. I'm like, I don't
yeah,
care how good the points are. You paid 30% interest for those points. They're not worth it anymore. So, but we get caught up in that because you see all these points gurus, you see all these people like, hey, I went on this vacation and I didn't pay $1 out of pocket. And I'm like, that's really cool. But at the end of the day, it's looking through your own lens and having a really a good, um, self-reflection of yourself. Like, is this something that I can handle? And even myself in finances, I am like very true to like, how does this work for me, right? For example, some couples, they love separate accounts and that is just how they operate. Others, I've seen a hybrid approach where they have a joint account, two separate accounts, or others just
mhm,
full joint account. And honestly, I think that is more of a relationship decision than it is a financial decision. So it depends. So I'm a big advocate of whatever you're seeing online, whatever tips that you have, create balance, seek to create balance. Sometimes it's not always perfect, but seek to create balance. And then also just understanding. Um, what works with you and for you and what's not going to work for you. And I even tell people, I go, maybe we'll get to the point where we can use credit cards, but maybe we're not there today. And guess what? That's okay. Let's work to getting that point. And what do we need to do to get to that point? Um, and then, of course, you've got to do all the things at once. You've got to pay down debt at the same time as saving, at the same time as investing. And there's not one that should come before the other. The percentages will shift over time, but really, you don't want to miss out on the market today by waiting till you're out of debt or have savings to invest. And you also need to save to make sure that if an emergency comes in, we don't have to get back into debt, but you also want to pay off debt because debt's accruing interest typically. So, how to create that balance and figure out how do we do all of those things.
Oh, there it is, y'all. Hopefully, y'all are taking notes. If you didn't catch that the first time, rewind it, go back. But we talked about making sure that you take in the financial advice, but do it through your own personal lens, right? You want to make sure you add context to it. You want to make sure that if you are utilizing your credit cards, you're paying the debt off, and you're not just swiping, going crazy, trying to get all the points, but not realizing the amount of interest that you're paying on the back end. Um, I want to ask. You talked about investments, right? You said you should be doing all three at the same time: saving, paying down debt, and investing. I think the first two are pretty self-explanatory, right? But that
Mhm.
third one, I think, can be intimidating for some folks. Can you talk about investing strategies? And I know there's different levels of risk and profiles, but what are some core investment tools or vehicles that you're usually advocating for married couples?
I would say the first is this concept that we call dollar cost averaging. So sometimes you might see it written as like abbreviated as DCA, which basically what that says is you are, instead of trying to time the market, you just pick an interval. So on the first of every month, you're putting money into the market. And math will actually tell you, this is where I like math, will tell you that over time, you'll actually pay less per share doing that instead of trying to time the market. And what that means is, let's say we're investing in Apple stock, it's shifting every single day. Well, actually, every single minute and second of the trading day, right? So to try to figure out, is it its height? Is it its low? That first off, we don't have time for that. But if you just put in money on the, let's say the first every single month, and you're putting in $100 a month, what that does is one month maybe the share is $50, and the next month on the first it's 45, and the next month it's 43 and 52. And over time, the average cost per share is typically less than if you just dump money in the market all in one day. The only
Mm,
time that doesn't work is if you happen to pick the day that the market was at its absolute lowest, which is nobody knows. So doing that, one, it does help you average out the cost per share, but two, it also is creating that habit, that discipline, where this is just part of our, this is another bill. We're just putting money in on the first of each month or
mhm.
the fifth of each month, and it is part of your strategy.
Yeah. I like that concept of this is another bill we're going to pay every single month, no matter what. And having that habit, you're paying yourself in the future, right? I
Correct.
love that. Do you have a preference between individual stocks like Apple versus mutual funds or a collection of stocks?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I spend a lot of my time too explaining to people, even one, the difference between stocks and bonds. So stocks represent ownership in a particular company. And it, like, if you're an owner of a company, the only way that you make money is if that company makes money, right? And then bonds are a debt instrument. So you're actually lending money to a company. So those are considered more secure because if a company is going out of business, they have to pay back their debts first before they're able to take profits. Profits go to stocks, debt goes to debt holders, which would be bond holders. So those are the two main types. Bonds are considered more conservative investment, but they also don't typically increase as much, right? Because the risk versus reward, right? You're not taking on as much risk, so the reward or the potential reward is not as high. A stock is the exact opposite. You are taking on risk, so your reward is typically higher. You have different types of stocks too, right? A brand new company that issues stocks is going to be a little bit more of an aggressive move, but you have a lot of potential for return. So those are two main types. And then you can do individually. Individual stocks or bonds, or you can do groups of stocks and bonds, which would be ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, or mutual funds, which are they're basically grouped the same way. If
Mhm.
you're new to investing, I'm a big fan of either ETFs or mutual funds. And the reason behind that is it's groups of stocks. They were actually created initially for people that couldn't, for basically middle class America that wasn't able to invest thousands of money, but you can invest hundreds. And then you can basically what you're doing is you're buying fractional shares. So instead of just buying like one stock in Apple and then fingers crossed Apple does well, you're investing in Apple, Tesla, Google, Alphabet, all these different things. So you're spreading out your risk. It's what we call diversification. So you're basically putting your eggs in multiple baskets. It's a great way to start because it's also it's a more of a passive investment strategy. You're not having to check the markets every single day because if Tesla has a terrible trading day, it's not affecting your whole portfolio. It's
They
affecting
have.
a fraction. Yeah, they have, especially this year. So I'm a big fan. Yeah, if you're starting, I love ETFs or mutual funds, which you mostly find those also, like if you think of retirement accounts, they're typically, if you have a 401k, that's all they're offering is ETFs and mutual funds because that's a really great way to dip your toes in the water and get used to that. And actually, even people that are seasoned investors that have millions oftentimes still don't hold individual stock portfolios. I don't think it's the only way to build wealth. It's a cool way, and some people are very good at it, but that does require a lot more active management, and it does require a lot more research too, I would say.
Okay. Masterclass breakdown right there. Thank you. Thank you. Are there platforms that you trust and would recommend for people that are trying to invest in either individual stocks or trying to invest in ETFs, mutual funds? Are there some trusted platforms that you would recommend them doing some research?
I mean, I am a big fan in terms of technology, like Schwab is really good. Their platform's easy to use. Vanguard, obviously, as well as a big name in Fidelity. So, just kind of backstory with the financial industry over, and I can't remember the exact stats, but basically since 2008, when we had the financial crisis, we've seen so much compression of different financial companies. So you've got TD Ameritrade being swallowed up by Schwab, and all of these companies kind of being taken over by the big companies too. So I'm also a fan of just going to the guy that's swallowing up all the other ones, right? So like
Mm,
Schwab, for example, is a great place to be. They acquire, they don't get acquired. So I in big companies like that, Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, they're easy to open accounts, either brokerage accounts, which there's money held outside of retirement accounts, or even opening retirement accounts, and they have low trading fees, and then you can buy individual stocks or you can also buy ETFs or mutual funds as well.
beautiful. Okay. Um, Slightly hard question for you. And not
Uh,
hard because it's a actually hard question, hard because it could be a controversial question. And that is life insurance.
okay.
Okay. I think, we've had some life insurance folks on the podcast before, and I think life insurance is a tool that a lot of people use, but there's not a lot of trust in life insurance, specifically within the Black community. So, as a person who's a financial planner, not specifically in life insurance, can you talk to people about the importance of life insurance and how to vet a trusted broker of life insurance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I will also say, so the finance is so broad in terms of what we do. So backstory for me, like I have every license to sell any sort of type of like financial product, whether that's an individual stock, annuity, life insurance, bond. And the purpose behind me doing that was, hey, there is a place in people's plans for these types of products, whether it be life insurance or annuity. So I am biased when I say this, but I typically like going to someone that does work with the breadth, is licensed to work with multiple different things, or at least works with a team that does all those things, because then it feels less like a product pitch and more like, hey, this is part of the plan. This is why I'm recommending this, not because this is the only thing that I can sell or I'm licensed to sell or the only thing that I work on, but this is because this is the piece of your puzzle that's missing. Um, so with life insurance, though, there is absolutely a place in it for a lot of people's plans. First off, we are all going to pass away someday. So
Mhm.
even having some base form of life insurance would help prevent, I always think of that when I see people standing on the corner with the signs, asking for money to help pay for funeral expenses for someone. And I guarantee you that's the last thing that they want to be doing when they just lost someone, is then asking for money. Now, so I just think of that, and that's why I got life insurance as soon as I was like 20 years old. And I was like, I don't want that for my family. I want to make sure that you can at least, put me in the ground and, continue. Now, you can use it as a tool to build wealth and to like leave a legacy. But I think the base minimum is, how do we make sure that our family is okay if something happens, so as to just make sure that those proper procedures can be taken care of. So in terms of vetting, though, you definitely, there are ratings for life insurance companies. So there's A ratings, A plus. I would stay away from anything B or below. That also tells you the stability of the company. So a life insurance policy is only as good as long as the company is around, right? To pay out
How do you?
the policy.
Yeah, sorry, Jasmine. Really quick,
Yeah.
because I think it's very important. How do you find the rating?
Sometimes they will, typically especially if they're an A plus company, they will put it on their on any of their marketing material. But you can just look up life insurance ratings for companies. Now, the B rated companies aren't as prevalent. When I talk about A rated companies, these are probably companies you've heard of, like Nationwide, John Hancock, Lincoln Financial. But these are big companies that a lot of us has heard of. So you might not necessarily, full disclosure, like necessarily their ethics or how, but they've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. So when I think of something of, I want to make sure if I'm putting money into this, I'm going to get my money back and they're going to follow their word and their contract. You want a company that is rated well, that they have, looking at their financial stability too. So like, they'll tell you how much money they have on their books, meaning if we had a catastrophic event and half of our insured people died and we had to pay out all those claims, how much extra reserves do we have left over? And sometimes companies have 2 or 3 times the reserves, meaning literally everybody could pass away and they'd still have millions of dollars left. That's who I want to be with, to be honest. I'm like, I
Yeah,
want to know that if something crazy happens, you're going to pay this out.
that's real. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I know that was a little bit of a curveball, but I think that's
Oh,
good,
yeah.
important stuff. Nipsey Hussle said, "$1 million life insurance policy on my flesh." And as soon as I heard those words, I immediately went out and I got $1 million life insurance policy as
There
well.
you go.
So definitely make sure y'all are taking care of your families, but do the research and find a trusted person, a trusted company that can pay you out. Because that's something else that I think, trauma that we've experienced throughout the
Hmm.
Black community. Specifically, we talk about the legacy of Black Wall Street, is they had insurance policies that were not honored, right? And of course, that
Correct.
was due to discrimination, not due to the companies not having the money. But I think that trauma of living that, and there's been cases of that all throughout American history. I feel like, it leaves a little bit of distrust for the Black community in dealing with um, life insurance. But when we have amazing folks like Jasmine Ball and amazing folks that we can trust, definitely make sure y'all are investing in your futures. Okay. Speaking of which, can you talk to us about, if folks want to work with Bamboo Financial Partners, what are some of the core services that they can look forward to maybe getting from you all?
Yeah, so I specialize really with financial planning, which the way I describe it is like I am a personal trainer for your finances. So what that means is the very first place we start out is like, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because a lot of times people come to me and say, "What do you think I should do?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know what you're trying to accomplish. So I want to know what your goals are first. And then we work backwards and saying, okay, your goal, maybe it's retirement. Maybe it's to buy a home. Maybe it's to get out of debt. Maybe it's to have more clarity around your cash flow and budgeting. Maybe it's to start a business. Whatever your financial goal is, that's where we start. And then we build a personal plan from there. So my background in social work, I do what's called a SWOT analysis. So it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So I look at your current picture and saying, what are our strengths? What are some weaknesses? What opportunities do I see? And what threats that we can't necessarily always protect against, but we can at least mitigate and try to at least be aware of, and saying, okay, this is something like, for a lot of people, especially I've seen in the Black community, like family can be a threat in terms of, hey, I might
Mm,
have to take care of my parents, or I might have to do this, or my aunt always asks me for money and I don't know how to say no. So that's a threat to a financial plan. And maybe we're working towards, let's not do that. Or maybe it's like, hey, I get that this isn't ideal, but this is just the way it is. How do I still set myself up for success despite these obstacles in the way? And values matter because there are so many different financial tools out there. I'm a big fan of values. Like, what are things that you value? Some people value what's we called ESG funds, environmental social governance, ESG. So those are companies that are investing in sustainability things, so like energy companies, sometimes technology companies, green energy, things of those nature. So people will say that's really important to me. Others are saying, hey, like even just a value of, hey, family is very important to me. So what that tells me is when we're creating their financial plan, the money is for the family, right? The money, like that's important to them. So I work with, so that is, we do subscription-based financial planning too, because we try to make it incredibly accessible for people. I don't like contracts, because I think I say we have partners, not clients, because I want to partner. We partner with the people that we work with because it's a collaboration. I don't know everything. So I love to learn. I love to hear from other people. You're watching things on TikTok and seeing things on Instagram. I'm seeing things too. So it's like, what are we learning? What are some tools that we've seen? What are some banks that we've heard about or investment? And so that's a piece of it is the financial planning, which is really a lot of it's behavioral, a lot of it's just accountability, a lot of it's like, hey, let's literally pull up your bank statements and see where your money is going. Because a lot of us
Mm,
we don't
they
know,
don't.
or like
They don't want to do
we
that.
do not know.
They
No.
don't wanna do that.
Sometimes I'll be like, well, send it to me. We don't have to do it together, but I'm gonna go through it. And they're like, I was just sitting down with clients the other day, and they're like, yeah. I said, we have your eating out budget at $1,100 a month. They said, oh, it's that high? And I said, that's based off the data, not what you told me. That's literally me pulling the numbers. And they go, oh no, we think it's gone way down. We do the numbers again. It was $900 a month. It's like, I mean, it's gone down a little bit, but they're all thinking
Right.
they're like 500, and I'm like, no. So there is where you think you are, and there is where you actually are. And
Right.
I try to find, and how do we, and then I'll tell people, I go, okay, so it is about $1,100 a month. Are we comfortable with that number, or do we want to be lower? And if we want to be lower, how do we get lower? And maybe the answer is I'm comfortable with that number. And then say, okay, that's fine. Then let's plan around it. But if you're not comfortable with it, what do we have to do to get to that point?
Oh, great stuff, y'all. How about entrepreneurship couples, right? Couples that have a business together. Is there any different service that you have for them, or just advice that you have for couplepreneurs? They're building their company together, but they're also trying to make sure that they are financially stable long term.
Yeah. So my advice on the advice side is, it's tough, especially in the beginning when you're building, but to separate the family from the business. And
Mm,
even practically in terms of accounts, but even just goal wise, because though there are some overlaps, like if your family unit cannot survive, the business cannot survive, but they have to be separate. And that's really hard to do because your business, I know, because I have my own, is like my baby. It's my first baby. It's my first love. I'm like, I will spend all my time on it, but I also have to separate the two. And that's so important. And if you can do that from the foundation while you're building it, you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of even myself. It took me years to figure that out of how do I separate these two things. And then in terms of like practically how we help, I actually have recently brought on um, associate, and he works with, we build help specifically small businesses create employee benefits packages, whether that's for yourself.
mm,
Yeah, because it's like when you don't have it anymore because they're not offering it and you have to create it yourself, that's the last thing that you do. As entrepreneurs, as small business owners, we're wearing so many different hats. You may know, hey, I need to do finances, but to get to it is tough. So we're like, okay, do we need workers' comp? Do we need a retirement plan in place? Do we need health insurance? Like, what do we need to make your business sustainable, but also help you towards your personal goals too?
I love that piece. Yes, we recently went through all of that, and it's a lot of logistics, a lot of things to manage. So to be able to go to someone and help you build that out, love it. Okay.
Yeah,
So thank you again so much for your time this morning. And again, congratulations on the
thank
wedding, on the
you.
marriage. Wishing y'all many years of love, prosperity. I want to, as we end, if you can give folks a book recommendation, because I love books. So if you have a book that you feel like would be very helpful for us in increasing our financial literacy, even as individuals or as a couple, that would be great. And then just last words of wisdom, right? And giving you a couple seconds to think about that. If you're listening, if you're watching, definitely make sure y'all like and subscribe to the M4 show. We've also recently started our M4 Mastermind, where you get access to amazing webinars, in-person events, travel experiences. We may or may not be going to Korea in December. If you want to tap in on that trip, definitely make sure you go to the m4show.com, join the mastermind, and join the community. Now, our closing words from the queen over here, Madam Jasmine Ball. Please let us know a book and then your final advice for couples out there.
So I'm a fan of the classics, and I also, even though I have bookshelves and bookshelves of books, but I always find myself reading the same books. I love Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That is a classic. It has been around for a while, but and my thing is too, is like foundations matter, that foundational knowledge matters. So a lot of times we're always looking for the new, and I'm like, if we would just do the now, what we have right in front of us, we can get there, but you can't get there or sustain it unless you do. So those foundational principles found in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, I recommend it. Read it all the time, or at least once a year to just remind yourself, because you're also finding new things, or you can't also implement everything all at once. So being able to just start there and implement, I'm a big fan of that too. Entrepreneurs, I will say 4 hour work week, that really changed my perspective of life. Now it's not, one size fits all, but it was just like, wow, it expanded the idea of what's possible. So those would be my two book recommendations. And then just, I guess, final words of wisdom. Um, kind of the same to the people getting into the space. Like if we into thinking of getting into financial planning, like if you don't see something, create it. The resources exist. If you're looking for an African American advisor specifically, there's even a site called we call it Quad A. It's the Association of African American Advisors, and it's literally a search tool where you can just
Mm,
look and see someone in your area or someone that works virtual, and you can see all the African American advisors, because there are not very many of us. 100,000 CFPs in the United States, and less than 2% are Black. So it's a small percentage of us that are out there. So to try to find the resources that you're looking for, and over the past few years, I've had people, looking specifically, like, I want someone that looks like me, but I also want to challenge you to where you don't actually need someone that looks just like you, that can help and understand your situation. Happy to do it. I'm sure most of us are, but I think it's less about experiences and more about philosophy. So looking to find someone who your investment philosophy aligns, your value philosophy aligns, because that's someone that you want to partner with on your future. If you think of, who you want to be with your teammate, if you're married and you're a couple, you didn't choose someone that had different values than you, right? You had someone that you had at least some shared values, so you could move forward towards shared goals and purposes. The same thing when you're adding another member of your team, because think of us like a member of your team. A financial planner is, we're there to just be another member of your team. So make sure that the values and philosophies align. Um, all the other things are ancillary, right? That will get there. And honestly, all the other things are, you can find at a lot of us. It's who do you have that value alignment with, and that's who you're going to want to build your future with, is someone that's in your corner. Especially if you're married, someone that believes in your marriage and you guys as a unit, not trying to separate the two, and not okay with that separation, but is really seeking unity.
yeah, that was a major key right there. Someone who's not seeking a separation of that union. That was beautiful. Um, if we were to have you again, what topic would you want to focus on for the next episode, right? Because this one we focused on the origin story, as well as what you offer kind of broadly to not only teachers but community members that are trying to build wealth. If we were to have you back after your wedding, after your honeymoon, when you're relaxing later on in the year, what topic would you want to cover?
I really like talking about like strategies to build wealth, just very practical strategies. Whether that's talking about savings, delving a little bit deeper into investing, explaining the differences of life insurance, but the different strategies that are out there because it's not a one size fits all. And some we feel more comfortable with than others too when it comes to strategy. So I love talking about that because to me, finances is not black and white. It's gray. It's finding what fits for you. There's not a wrong answer and a right answer. There's usually an answer that makes sense for you.
There it is. Thank y'all for tapping into the M4 show. If you're excited about episode part 2 with Jasmine Ball talking about strategies, please make sure y'all comment strategies below. And of course, like this video. Jasmine from Bamboo Financial Partners, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.